They erased me from the family legacy. But my father left one letter that changed everything. Mo Ta. Studio microphone. She gave her whole life to her family, only to be erased from their legacy. In this deeply emotional true-style story, follow Elena's journey, from being the silent backbone of her family to uncovering the betrayal that almost stole her identity. When her father passed away, she expected grief. But instead, she faced something far worse: silence. Exclusion. A legacy rewritten without her. But sometimes, the truth refuses to stay buried. And one letter can change everything. Broken heart. If you've ever felt unseen, unappreciated, or left out by the ones you loved most, this story will speak to you. Sparkles. Stay until the end for a powerful reminder: you are not invisible. Bell. Subscribe for more real-life family stories. Speech balloon. Share your thoughts or your own story in the comments. Red heart. If this moved you, please like and share it. Someone else may need to hear this too. Stay with us until the end of this video. They erased me from the photo. From the dinner table. From the family legacy. I gave everything to them: time, love, loyalty, and when my father died, they acted like I never existed. But he didn't forget me. He left behind one letter. Just for me. And that letter? It changed everything. Studio microphone. She gave her whole life to her family, only to be erased from their legacy. In this deeply emotional true-style story, follow Elena's journey, from being the silent backbone of her family to uncovering the betrayal that almost stole her identity. When her father passed away, she expected grief. But instead, she faced something far worse: silence. Exclusion. A legacy rewritten without her. But sometimes, the truth refuses to stay buried. And one letter can change everything. Broken heart. If you've ever felt unseen, unappreciated, or left out by the ones you loved most, this story will speak to you. Sparkles. Stay until the end for a powerful reminder: you are not invisible. Bell. Subscribe for more real-life family stories. Speech balloon. Share your thoughts or your own story in the comments. Red heart. If this moved you, please like and share it. Someone else may need to hear this too. Stay with us until the end of this video. Part 1: The Photo Without Me. It was a quiet summer afternoon, the kind where cicadas hummed in the background like an old lullaby. I was driving past the Hartley Inn, the family hotel I had poured my 20s into. Brick by brick, soul by soul. The newly updated marquee shone under the Carolina sun: "Congratulations Victoria, the heart of Hartley House." I hadn't been invited. And maybe what hurt more was that I wasn't even surprised. There's a kind of pain that doesn't shout. It just sits inside your chest like a memory you never agreed to keep. Growing up, I used to believe that if you stayed, if you did the right thing, if you gave quietly and didn't ask for anything in return, you'd be seen. You'd be loved. But I was wrong. Sometimes, the more you give, the easier it is for them to forget you. Inside the lobby, there was a photo hung beside the concierge desk. A glossy, beautiful print showing the grand reopening of the hotel after the pandemic. Everyone was there: my parents, the staff, Victoria in the center, her hand resting on the railing like she was born to carry it all. I took that photo. But I wasn't in it. There was something devastating about that image. Not because I expected recognition, but because it confirmed a truth I'd tried to deny for years: I was never meant to be part of their story. Only the scaffolding they stood on. That night, I went home and pulled out an old photo album. The kind with sticky pages and soft plastic covers, edges worn from time. Pictures of birthdays, school plays, the Christmas when the pipes burst and we cooked dinner by candlelight. In almost all of them, I was there, but always in the background. Holding the camera. Passing the plates. Cleaning the mess. I sat on the living room floor, knees pulled to my chest. Flipping through years of near invisibility. It hit me like a quiet thunder: how much of my life had been lived in the margins. And still, they erased me. Later, in the bathroom, I stood in front of the mirror. I studied the woman looking back. Tired eyes. A soft mouth that had swallowed too many words. Shoulders that had always shrunk so others could rise. I remembered something my grandfather told me once, after a school play where no one clapped for my part. The ones they don't see, sweetheart, are often the ones who carry the most. It echoed now, not as comfort, but as a promise. They had written me out of the story. But the truth had a way of writing itself back in. And that was just the beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into the kitchen and made tea in the same chipped mug Dad used every morning. I stood by the window, watching the street lights flicker. I thought of all the moments I had chosen family over myself. The time I stayed behind to run the inn during their vacation. The calls I took at 2 a.m. when Victoria needed help. And the silence afterward. My life had been a series of invisible yes, each one a step toward disappearing. But something inside me had shifted. Not loudly, but enough. Because if they could pretend I wasn't there, then maybe it was time I showed them what it meant to finally, fully be. I returned to that framed photo in my mind, the one where everyone smiled. Where I stood behind the camera. And I pictured myself walking into the frame, no longer content to be the one holding the lens, no longer afraid to take up space. They could crop me out of pictures. They could leave my name off the guest list. But they couldn't erase what I had lived. And maybe, just maybe, that was where my story began. Part 2, The Cut from an Envelope. A week later, I got a call from Raymond Clark, my father's old estate attorney. I remembered him from when I was a teenager, always impeccably dressed, with an office that smelled like ink and dusted leather. He sounded cautious on the phone. "Elena, I trust you received the legal notice regarding asset transition?" I hadn't. My throat closed up before I could answer. When we met the next day, he slid a manila envelope across the polished mahogany desk. I opened it, and everything inside turned to ice. It was all there. Every asset transferred to Victoria. The Hartley Inn. The family home. The investment portfolios. Even the lake cottage in Oregon my father promised would be mine one day. "This can't be right," I whispered. Raymond frowned. "In the 2018 draft of your parents' estate, you were a co-heir. Unless something changed." He went to the safe and returned with a sealed envelope, my father's handwriting, unmistakable, to confirm Elena Hartley's rights. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a notarized document reaffirming my co-ownership. And tucked behind it, a note. Just a few lines in my father's familiar pen. "Elena carries the soul of this home. Never forget." Tears fell before I knew they had started. There was something sacred about reading words from someone who once saw you, even when others refused to. I held the letter for a long time. Not because it changed everything, but because it reminded me I wasn't wrong to believe I mattered. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where I once made soup when Dad had the flu. Where I sewed the hem on Victoria's graduation gown. I opened a drawer and found an old birthday card tucked between dead batteries and tangled tape. It was from him. Just 3 years ago. I hadn't even remembered keeping it. "Stay steady. When they forget, your truth will still remember you." I clutched it to my chest like a lifeline. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about being erased, and now, reclaiming every piece of myself they tried to bury. I sat there long after the sun had dipped beneath the rooftops. I lit the candle Dad used to keep near the coffee pot, said it made the mornings feel slower. Softer. I watched the flame flicker and wondered how many parts of me I'd traded for belonging. How many years I stayed quiet because I thought loyalty was love. This time, I wouldn't vanish into the wallpaper. This time, I would speak. And this time, they would see me. Part 3, The Dinner with No Seat. They invited me to a quiet dinner to talk. I stood in front of my closet that evening, unsure what to wear to a meal that felt more like a formality than a reconciliation. I chose a simple navy dress, one I had worn to church the morning after Dad's funeral. The fabric had faded, but it still carried memory. When I arrived, the table was already set. Crystal glasses, polished silver, and one too few place settings. No seat for me. Mother wore her pearl earrings and poured wine with the grace of someone used to ignoring discomfort. Victoria offered her rehearsed smile and raised a glass. To family, she said. And to the future. My hands stayed in my lap. Dinner passed in fragments. Laughter that didn't reach me. Polite conversation about business expansions, charity galas, Victoria's upcoming keynote at the Women in Leadership Forum. I listened, like I always had, without interrupting. After the meal, I excused myself and wandered into the study. The walls hadn't changed, framed degrees, dusty books, and the old mahogany desk where Dad used to rest his hands. I ran my fingers along the edge and opened the middle drawer. Tucked beneath a pile of tax records was an embossed invitation. Legacy ceremony honoring Victoria Hartley as sole heir of Hartley House. I stared at it. So it was official. They weren't just forgetting me. They were rewriting history in broad daylight. Outside, the backyard was dark but familiar. I walked to the old oak tree and touched the initials Dad had carved into the bark decades ago, E.H., always here. That night, the swing swayed gently in the breeze. No one sat in it anymore, but I remembered being pushed in it. I remembered Dad's voice behind me, laughing. And I remembered the last time he looked at me like I mattered. Inside, the family posed for a picture. I watched from the shadows as the flash blinked. I knew I wouldn't be in that photo either. But this time, I wasn't just sad. I was awake. They had built their legacy on my silence. And now, I was done being quiet. I went home that night and opened a notebook. At the top of a fresh page, I wrote one sentence. Start telling the story they tried to erase. Then I wrote another. You were never the problem. You were the witness. And another. Being quiet was survival. But now, truth is healing. I didn't know what kind of story I was about to tell. Whether it would bring closure or chaos. But I knew one thing. I would never again beg for a seat at a table that didn't make room for me. This wasn't rebellion. It was reclamation. Part 4, The Truth Needs a File. I started with a name, Linda Monroe. A signature analyst, sharp-eyed and meticulous. She had testified in high-profile fraud cases, but what drew me to her was something she said in an interview once. Ink doesn't lie. People do. I emailed her the scanned documents that had haunted me for weeks. The denial of inheritance. The amended will. My name, crossed out in fine print. She called back 2 days later. Elena, she said softly, that signature isn't your father's. It mimics his style, but the pressure, the loops, it's fabricated. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. I wanted to be wrong. Because if I was right, that meant someone I loved, someone I trusted, had deliberately erased me. Not by accident. Not by forgetfulness. But by design. I opened my laptop and started digging. I pulled every bank statement from the last 5 years. Every Venmo transfer. Every PayPal record. All the quiet ways I had helped my family, without ever asking for a thing in return. $60,000 to cover payroll when COVID hit the hotel. $8,200 for Mom's roof replacement. $3,700 wired to Victoria just for the weekend after her investment deal went south. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Heartly Truth. Inside, I dropped in PDFs, screenshots, receipts. And next to each file, I left a note, something I remembered. A moment. A sentence. A feeling. This was the week I skipped my vacation to work the front desk when staff got sick. This was the birthday I paid for but never attended. This was the Christmas I sent gifts in everyone else's name. Then came the emails. The ones Dad used to send late at night. Simple lines like, "Couldn't have done this without you. L. Thanks for being the quiet rock behind all of us." And somehow, those were the ones that broke me. Because they proved I wasn't invisible. Not to him. Not always. I played one old voicemail over and over again. Dad's voice, warm and tired. "Sweetheart, I know I don't say it enough, but thank you. You hold us together more than anyone knows." I sat with that recording, eyes closed, letting his words fill the cracks where grief had made a home. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because I mattered. Because his memory mattered. And because I refused to let them bury both. That night, I drafted a letter. Not for court. Not for lawyers. For me. I am not here to destroy my family. I am here to stop them from destroying me. I gave everything in silence. Now, I will speak in truth. I folded the paper gently and slid it into a blue envelope. The kind Dad used for birthday cards. The kind that always said, "I'm proud of you." I didn't know what would come next. But I knew this. I would no longer let loyalty become my silence. And I would no longer mistake being needed for being loved. Part 5, The Last Family Meeting. The letter came in a cream envelope with gold trim. Too elegant for what it carried. It was from my mother. "Elena, we think it's time to talk. Please come for dinner. Just the three of us. No lawyers. Just family." That word, family, landed heavy. I read the letter at the kitchen table with a mug of cold tea in my hands. I didn't answer right away. I didn't even move. I sat there for nearly an hour, staring at the way her script curved my name, as if it still meant something to her. I knew what the dinner would be. A performance. An attempt at soft diplomacy. A carefully planned way to make things look whole from the outside, while letting the rot fester within. But I went. Not for them. For myself. Because I needed to hear them say it. I needed them to sit across from me and speak aloud the things they'd only dared whisper when I wasn't in the room. That Friday, I pulled into the circular driveway of my childhood home. It looked the same. Manicured hedges. A porch light glowing warmly. A wreath still clinging to spring even though summer had already arrived. I paused on the steps. There was a time when this house smelled like fresh bread and sounded like laughter. Now, it just looked like a place full of locked doors. Mom greeted me at the door. She smiled, the kind that twitches too quickly. "You look tired, sweetheart," she said. "I'm not," I answered. Inside, the dining table was already set, white candles flickering. Linen napkins folded into triangles. It felt like Thanksgiving, but colder. Victoria arrived 5 minutes later, heels clicking across the hardwood like punctuation. We sat. The silence between us was louder than the clatter of silverware. Dinner began with pleasantries. "How was work? Have you been sleeping? Did you ever repaint your guest room?" I let them talk. I let them pretend. Until my mother finally placed her fork down and folded her hands in front of her. "Elena," she said, "we didn't mean for things to get so complicated." Victoria jumped in. "This isn't about you being excluded. You're twisting everything. You've always been too sensitive. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw nothing I recognized anymore. I'm not being sensitive, I said softly. I'm being honest. They paused. I pulled the envelope from my bag and placed it on the table. Receipts. Signatures. Audio transcripts. Handwritten notes from Dad. I'm not here to beg, I said. I'm here to be clear. What happened was wrong. What you did, whether by action or silence, was betrayal. Mother reached for her glass. Elena, she began, your father wanted to simplify things. He thought Victoria. No, I interrupted. He didn't. You forged his will. I have proof. And deep down, you both know it. The air tightened. Victoria's face flushed. You have no idea what Dad wanted. You left for college, remember? You abandoned all of this. I stayed. I built it. I shook my head. You built a lie. And you built it using pieces of me. I turned to Mom. You used to call me your steady one. You leaned on me after every argument with Dad. I helped you pay off the second mortgage without ever asking for anything in return. And still, you let them erase me. Her eyes welled up for the first time. But she said nothing. I stood slowly, placing the letter Dad had written me, the one Raymond had found, at the center of the table. His words, in his own hand. If anything ever goes wrong, know this, I trusted you. Elena. You were always the quiet force behind everything good we built. Don't let them take your name from it. Silence. Victoria stared at the candlelight like it could save her. Mother whispered, we thought you wouldn't fight us. I nodded. I know. And that was the most painful part. They didn't expect me to speak. Because I never had. They counted on my silence. My politeness. My longing to keep the peace, even when the war was burning through me. But I had changed. The dinner ended without dessert. I walked out with my head held high. The air thick with everything that had finally been said. Outside, the sky had turned a bruised purple, the kind that comes before summer storms. I got in the car and drove. Not to go home, but just to feel the motion of leaving something behind. Somewhere past the gas station where Dad used to buy licorice and the diner where we celebrated my college acceptance, I pulled over. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it might fall apart if I let go. I cried. Not because I was broken. But because I wasn't anymore. Because I had faced the people I had once shrunk myself for. And I didn't shrink. I stood in my own name. In my own history. In my own truth. The next day, I received a short email from Victoria. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you left us no choice. I didn't respond. Because I finally understood, I wasn't leaving them. They had left me a long time ago. All I did was stop following. That afternoon, I framed the letter Dad wrote. I placed it above my desk, next to a photograph of me as a child, standing in front of the inn, smiling wide, unaware of how invisible I'd someday become. But not anymore. Now. The photo had a name. Now, the girl in the picture had a voice. Now, the woman in the story had come home to herself. Part 6, When Justice Speaks. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cold coffee. Not the kind of place where truth feels welcome. But I wasn't there for comfort. I was there to be seen. It was a quiet Tuesday morning. Cloudy. The kind of gray that makes everything feel still. I wore my father's watch under the sleeve of my blouse. Not for luck. For presence. He wasn't there to testify. But I was. When I walked in, Victoria was already seated, flanked by two attorneys in sharp suits. My mother sat behind her, tight-lipped and trembling, eyes flickering toward me, then quickly away. They looked calm on the surface, but even oceans look still before a storm. My lawyer, a woman named Danielle, placed a hand on my arm. "Just tell the truth," she said. I nodded. Because that's all I had left. The judge was older, with silver hair and the kind of tired eyes that had seen too many families unravel. He opened the folder before him slowly. "We are here today to consider the matter of estate fraud, contested inheritance, and unlawful amendment of the Hartley Family Trust." His voice was low, but final. Linda Monroe was the first to speak. She walked to the front with a confidence that made the room lean forward. She explained everything with steady clarity: the forged signature, the altered timestamp, the metadata mismatch, the suspicious logins. Then she paused. "I've reviewed thousands of documents in my career. This," she held up the amended will, "is not an honest mistake. It's a deliberate erasure." Whispers rippled across the benches. Victoria's attorney objected, called it speculation. The judge waved it off. Then came the financial trail. Bank records showing transfers from my father's accounts days after his death. A forged login from an IP address tied to Victoria's assistant. Payments to a private notary no longer licensed to practice. And then came the audio. A grainy voice recording. "Victoria, in the kitchen. Elena doesn't fight. She'll walk away like always. She wants peace, not power." Then my mother's voice. "She's quiet. She always was. Let her stay small." The silence in the room was louder than the recording itself. Danielle stood. "Your Honor, we present this not to shame, but to prove a pattern. This wasn't just paperwork. It was a slow, intentional erasure of someone who gave her life to this family." The judge turned to me. "Ms. Hartley. You may speak." I stood slowly. Not shaking. Not afraid. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said. "I came here for my father. And for myself." I looked at Victoria. Then my mother. For years, I gave quietly. I stayed. I supported. I believed that love meant sacrificing without asking for anything back. But what happened wasn't just neglect. It was theft. Of trust. Of legacy. Of identity. I pulled out the letter my father wrote. "If anything ever goes wrong, know this: I trusted you, Elena. You were always the quiet force behind everything good we built." My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. "I am not the problem. I am the witness. And I am done being invisible." I sat. The courtroom was still. The judge flipped through the exhibits, one page at a time. Then he leaned back. "This court finds sufficient evidence to proceed with a full audit of the Hartley estate. Immediate freezing of all contested assets, and legal standing granted to Ms. Hartley as co-heir." He looked directly at Victoria. "And pending the audit, this court advises you retain new counsel." The gavel came down like thunder. And just like that, truth had a voice again. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled like rain. The clouds had broken open, but the sun hadn't quite come through. I stood on the steps, folder clutched in my arms, heart strangely calm. Victoria rushed past me without a glance. My mother paused at the door. Her eyes searched mine. "I never wanted this to go this far," she said. "You didn't stop it," I replied. She opened her mouth, then closed it. And then she left. Danielle touched my shoulder. "You were brilliant in there." "I wasn't," I said softly. "I was just honest. And maybe that was enough." That night, I went back to the inn. It was late. The lobby was empty. I walked past the concierge desk where the photo still hung of Victoria in the center, ribbon in hand, smile wide. I reached into my bag and pulled out a copy of the letter from my father. I slid it behind the frame, tucked gently between the glass and the photograph. Let the guests see what they want. But I would always know the truth behind the smile. I turned off the lights and locked the door. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel shut out. I felt free. Part 7, not an end, a beginning. A month passed. Then 2. And the world didn't fall apart. No scandal splashed across the local paper. No dramatic family statement. Just silence. The kind that used to terrify me. But now, it felt like space. Space to breathe. To rebuild. To become. The audit of the Hartley estate moved forward quietly. Most of the documents were sealed, but I received a simple message from the firm handling it. Your position as rightful co-heir has been confirmed. We will proceed accordingly. There was no apology attached. But there was truth. And sometimes, that's all you get. One Saturday morning, I returned to the lake house. This time, not in pain, but in peace. The porch boards no longer creaked like a warning. They welcomed me, soft under my steps. I made coffee in Dad's old tin pot, the one with the dent near the handle. I drank it slowly on the porch. Wrapped in his old flannel, the lake still and silver before me. I pulled out my notebook. The same one I had once filled with pain, now ready for something else. I survived being invisible. I wrote. Now I'm learning how to be fully seen. Later that week, I walked the halls of the Hartley Inn alone. Room 206 still had the creaky radiator. Room 302 still smelled faintly of lavender, from when I planted sachets in the drawers during the pandemic because guests needed softness. I wandered into the storage room, where dusty boxes held old guest books, donation records, family photos no longer on display. In one of the boxes, buried beneath wrinkled ledgers, I found something I hadn't seen in years. A photo of me and Dad on the roof, stringing up Christmas lights. We were both laughing. He had one hand on my shoulder, the other holding a tangled ball of bulbs. The moment wasn't perfect, my hair was wind-blown, his flannel was stained with paint. But it was real. I stood there holding that photo like it was a map. Because it was. A reminder of who I had been before silence became survival. I placed the photo on the front desk, not to prove anything to anyone, but because I belonged there. I always had. The inn needed repairs. The roof leaked. The wallpaper in the east wing was peeling. But it felt good to care again. I hired a small team, locals, kind faces, hands that knew wood and wire better than any contractor from the city. I paid them well. I thanked them often. I listened to their stories. Because when you've been unheard for years, you learn to hear others better. In quiet moments, I talked to Dad. Not aloud. Just in that space inside where love lingers. I told him about the audit. The silence from Victoria. The letter from Mom I hadn't opened yet. I told him I missed him. Then I told him something I never thought I'd say. I forgive them. Not because they earned it. Not because they asked. But because I deserved to walk into my next chapter without carrying the weight of their choices. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't letting someone off the hook. It's setting yourself free from the rope they tied around your voice. Summer turned to fall. Leaves curled and fell gently across the gravel paths outside the inn. Guests returned, some familiar, some new. A woman in her 70s sat in the library every morning with chamomile tea and a novel. A father and daughter from Ohio spent 2 days hiking and talking about college. A retired nurse celebrated her birthday alone, then cried when the staff brought out a slice of cake. And I was there for all of it. Present. Whole. Real. Not holding the camera anymore. But standing in the frame. One evening, I walked to the old swing by the oak tree. The one Dad pushed me on when I was 5. The one no one had sat on since. I sat down gently. The chains creaked. The wind rustled the branches. And for a moment, just one quiet moment, I felt everything at once. The ache of the past. The grace of survival. The courage of return. And the beauty of beginning again.